Hey guys, it's Daisy Bateman here with a new podcast series, Happy Dais. Each week I will be talking to some of your favourite players and diving into their lives outside of football. To keep up to date with the podcast, check out all of North's socials and visit nmfc.com.au for more content. Hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to Happy Dais. Today I am joined by the AFLW Performance and Talent Manager, the man behind the North AFLW list expansion, and just a general wizard, Rhys Harwood. Welcome to the podcast, Rhys.
Thank you for having me, Days. I've been waiting for the call up.
So tell me a bit about your job and how you got into it. I know you've been at North Melbourne for quite a while now.
10 years in October. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a while. How did I get into it? I really wanted to work in football since I was probably at school and wasn't quite sure how to do it. So after school, obviously went to uni, but after a year of uni, decided that I wanted to see if I could get my foot in the door somehow, and was lucky enough to get a kind of administration role at the club in the consumer team, and sort of with the intention to try and get my foot in the door, and was lucky enough to be able to do some work experience under, you would know, Cam Joyce, who now coaches Gold Coast women's team. So he was fantastic and gave me a bit of like work experience, and that sort of led to some more work with Mark Finnegan, who's the talent manager here at the club, and or the recruiting manager here at the club. And from there just went into some part-time recruiting, which led to full-time recruiting, and then into the wonderful world of AFLW not long after that. So
consumer team. So what exactly was were you membership
or? Yeah, so I did it was an AFL Sports Ready traineeship was the best way then to kind of get your foot in the door, and it was a long year but a good year in terms of just getting to understand the club and know it better, and I was sort of able to balance that and finishing off my uni as well. So but was very lucky to meet Cameron Joyce and Mark Finnegan.
I feel like everyone started in the consumer team. Yeah, Matt Blytho did too.
It's a rite of passage.
I started in the consumer team as well. So obviously you started recruiting men first. So what have you found is the major difference between recruiting men and recruiting women?
Well, that's a good question, Daisy. It's very different. Like in my role in the men's recruiting team, it was very much just assisting kind of Mark and the other recruiters to identify the talent and kind of sort through it and just help Mark make the best decisions he could. Whereas coming into the girls' space, there's a lot more kind of involved in the process when you kind of have to make the call. But there's a lot of similarities, to be honest. I think coming into it with not much experience not much is none. No experience in women's footy for me was probably sort of helpful in a way, because my experience through men's recruiting meant I had a kind of eye for different things, and then Scotty G, who was obviously the coach at the time, was probably the opposite, with a pretty broad experience in women's footy. So we worked really kind of well together in terms of balancing those two things. But like fundamentally, we've always wanted to pick players who use the ball well, like yourself, and who make good decisions, and that's probably stemmed a bit from my time in the recruiting team and the boys, is that if you unfortunately can't use the ball, it's going to make it pretty tough. So,
and I guess you were our list manager for the expansion period, which you literally had to build a list from scratch, which I feel like is quite a rare opportunity. How did you go about it? Like, obviously, we've been there's been a lot of media around how we poach people, or built quite a strong list. How did you go about that? Because obviously, in expansion, you'd probably want every player that you think is the best player, right? So, how did you go about it?
The first part was a bit like Supercoach, putting a bit of just your wish list together, but it was tricky. Like, the first part is to decide the strategy part of it, how you want to go about it, and we obviously decided to be pretty aggressive, would be fair to say, which in hindsight has been a really, really good thing. I think we came in at a unique time. The competition had just kind of settled after 2 years, but there were still a group of players who after 2 years, the honeymoon period was a little bit over and we're keen on some new opportunities. We obviously went quite aggressive, and with obviously Carnes jumping on board, it sort of the dominoes started to fall a little bit, and we were able to bring in quite a few players. But it is interesting building a list from scratch, because you haven't got a starting point. So it was really interesting, as I said, with Scott's kind of knowledge of women's footy, and then my no real knowledge of women's footy until I started in the role. We often looked at each other at times. I'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about, Scott?" And he'd be like, "What the hell is Rhys talking about?"
Yeah. Where
we sort of struck gold a little bit was where we actually agreed on the. Yeah. So we worked well together in that regard. But it was an exciting time. It was an interesting time, like the amount of tours of the club that we had to do and all that stuff was never ending. I think we'd recited the speech after about the first 20 club tours. Yeah. But it was good. It was also nerve-wracking, particularly at the start around, as I said, once the few dominoes start to fall, it becomes a little bit easier. But that first group of players to get through the door is always tricky. Yeah.
And were there any particular players, like any specific players you were like, we have to do everything to get them?
Carnes, obviously, and Laura's connection through that was probably the main instigator of that. That's a good question. I think Jas, we knew there was something special there that we were very keen to bring in. But we were really keen to bring most of the players, to be honest, who we ended up bringing in. But there was a couple that kind of original group of Carnes and Jas and the Big King and Tiles were on the wish list pretty early, and I'm probably leaving out a few there, so I apologise. But we were pretty lucky in a sense with that group. But. And
the other side of the original players that were in the league already, you obviously had to pick a crop of girls that weren't actually already, in the league already. So, likes of Fabertangelo, Ash Riddell, which still surprises, I think, everyone to this day. Did you do a lot of like watching footage of those girls, what they did at their clubs before? Like they were at Diamond Creek with Scotty before, but did you do a lot of like research on them? Just think like, what are you not doing on a list?
It's funny. Like every player has such a different story of like the way they found themselves in. It's one of my favourite parts. I remember the Ash Riddell one well because it was not long after I'd started in the role. Yeah. Scott, I remember vividly, Scott came over with a yellow post-it note with 7 names on it of players who hadn't been drafted that he liked. Yep. And the top one of that was Ash Riddell. Yeah. So I came down to Melbourne, went down to Melbourne uni training. They had a scratch match, just luckily, on the Thursday night, or just a little 10-minute period of match him. And without a lie, she would have had 45 possessions in 10 minutes. I was like, that'll probably work. So that was probably the easiest one, or the easiest one to know that there was something there that would work. Yeah. But I actually remember that list quite well. And there's some players who are here and some players who are at other clubs now. And it was actually a pretty good list from Scott, to be honest. Yeah. The first game. But we did a lot of work. The open age signings, which we had quite a few of, was almost the trickiest part to navigate at that time. And there's like Ash and Alba are 2 really good examples of players that have forged really good careers from that. But there's a bunch across the league that potentially could have been here, which would have been nice, but are at other clubs who've done a really good job. So yeah, for sure. But each player had a very different story of how they got here. Yeah. And I guess in your role, you lead a lot of hard conversations. So you're a part of obviously trying to get people over here, but also the delistings or the tradings. Anyone that probably knows you is like you're an extremely nice person. Like but you're like you're not a mean person. You're not if you know you well enough, you are. Thanks, but I find that you're like more reserved, or like you're a lot nicer than the typical like what you would think of someone that would have to delist people. How do you like deal with that? Like how do you deal with like having to tell a player or making the decision that you're
pretty much taking someone's AFLW career away from them?
It's not great.
Yeah.
It's probably the worst part of the role, and even like Croc would say similar, I think. And probably Rad as well, as the three who probably deliver the news. Not easy. Worst time of the year.
Yes.
The delistings are particularly hard, and the trading of players is actually really difficult one to navigate too. But it's just part of the job. So there's equally fun parts of it as well in terms of giving players opportunities.
Sure.
But taking away opportunities is not very fun. Yeah.
And I think people probably underestimate the amount of time that would go into it in terms of decision making, whether you bring someone here or you put someone somewhere else or whatever. How many meetings do you reckon you'd have? Like even now, we're in the middle of the season. We have trade period where there's 4 new teams coming in.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah. Do you start like thinking about that early? Like, do you have to have meetings early to plan that? Like, is it a long-term kind of planning process?
Yeah, we probably build out plans over a couple of years.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky one. Like we have meetings, we have formal meetings probably every week.
Yeah.
Informal meetings and conversations every day.
Yes.
This time of the year is interesting because you also got to let the season play out a little bit as well. So you can have lots of plans, but players' form go up and down, and team performance goes up and down. And you do have to be pretty proactive, or it can catch up with you pretty quickly. But we're a pretty small staff in AFLW, so there's probably 4 or 5 of us full time.
Yep.
Who have pretty frequent conversations about all of it too. And it obviously lands somewhere at the end of the year, but it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
It's a really fluid kind of process.
It sounds fun.
Stressful, but fun.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sometimes.
Busy.
Yeah.
I guess something I want to talk to you about is the evolution of like AFLW, the skill set. My year when I got drafted, I think I got drafted with a couple of people my own age, but we drafted a lot of mature age players. We've drafted, Ferg's really young as well, but Tani Nesta we've drafted, Sarah Wright. Sarah Wright's an amazing player. It doesn't matter her age. But I guess
she's not that old, is she?
No, she's not old at all. Sorry, Righty. But if you look at, I guess, the evolution, like you look at girls like Alice O'Loughlin and Bella Eddy who have come in and are now impacting on our program. They're both only 19 years old. In my age group, I probably didn't make the same impact when I came in as what a Bella Eddy would or an Alice would. But
you've played every game so far, Dave.
Yeah, and I'm lucky.
Don't undersell yourself.
I'm lucky, but it's taken a while to get to where I am. I guess for you, is it more about building for the future now, or is it just, do you look at the draft and go, okay, I've got pick 3 in the draft, I'm going to draft whoever I think is the best, or do you...
I wish we had pick 3 in the draft.
I know.
Pick 303.
That was an exaggeration. That's also a result of where we finished though, right?
Correct.
But do you look more to plan for the future? Do you look more to have like immediate success, or is it a bit of both?
We've had to balance both.
Yeah.
Which can be tricky. We've probably we came in unashamedly to try and win.
Yes.
We were a little way off it in the first year, and that probably shaped our recruiting for the second year. And we picked some not older players. Sorry, Gab, you're not that old, but some some players who we felt had massive upside, but could also help us straight away.
Yep.
We got pretty close the second year before COVID, and we were a little way off last year. But it's just been a balance of making sure that you can't just not pick 18-year-olds.
Yes.
That doesn't work out well.
No.
So making sure that we've prioritised that at the top end of the draft and through Tassie as well. Shout out to Mia King.
Yes.
Perry and Ella in particular.
100%.
But also with lists of 30,
Yeah.
You've got to be super mindful of having enough players ready to play straight away if you're in a contention window, which we would like to think we are.
Yep.
We don't want to leave ourselves short. So that's been really tricky, actually, is to balance, particularly that last group of spots on the list. Should we be trying to bring players who can help us now, or do we need to keep stockpiling young players? And then there's usually a happy medium with players like Bella and Alice are a really good example.
Yes.
Of players who are young and will improve, but can also play a role
Yeah.
straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
And I yourself?
Well, I'm a bit older now.
Yeah, you're a veteran now.
Yeah, I'm a veteran, 22. So also, I guess, drafting young talent. Like I see, I guess I was probably drafted in a pretty talented year with like Press Parkis, and like we had pretty big names even now, like Tyler Hanks as well, Nina Morrison. I guess the standard of junior football is probably improved. Like obviously it's on upwards kind of spiral. It's going really well. For you, I guess, have you seen the standard really take off? I guess COVID's been a really annoying interruption, but you look at girls like I look at Tess Craven, who we've just drafted, and she's like ridiculously skilled. Like, there's been times where we've gone out for kicks. I've gone out for a kick with Tess, and I honestly have to apologise to her for how badly I'm kicking in comparison to how good she is. Because even like in match sim, you just see how poised she is. But I think when I played juniors and when I came from NAB League, that was the one thing that I think we probably got really highly criticised for, was just, around the ground skills. Do you see an improvement in the standard, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's more players now who've played for a long time.
Yeah.
And their skills naturally and decision making is better or improving. Tess is as football smart and skillful as I've probably seen for a while.
Yes.
And there's a big crop coming through, but it does change every year. Like there's really strong years and there's years where it's not quite as strong in terms of draft pool. But there's players who've played for a lot longer.
Yeah.
But I think you see that across the comp too. Like the product now compared to at the start is like it's a different sport.
Exactly.
It's like so different.
Yeah.
And the way teams are playing is so different, but it's improving very quickly.
Yeah. And you also have a massive hand in strategy, so our game plans, the way we go about things. How do you work out what you want to do? Like, I always find it really interesting that, every team has a different game plan. And in AFLW, I think a lot of teams try to do this as like a similar thing. But, you basically started from scratch with that as well, in terms of like you make the game plan. How do you come about it? Like, how do you construct that?
The coach generally makes the game plan, but
you have a hand in it.
Yeah,
right?
we all help. It's an interesting one because the game plans across the comp are they're so apparent now. So you can go to any game and see what a team is trying to do.
Yeah.
Which in the first couple of years, teams played pretty similar. I think.
I agree.
But now teams are wildly different. So like the game we played on the weekend, as an example, against Fremantle, two really different game styles.
Yep.
And two that are working. In a sense.
Yep.
So that's probably my favourite part of AFLW now is how different each team strategy is.
Yep.
In terms of how we come up with it, it's like a lot based on like coaching philosophies, and it's a hard one, but you just break it down into the three kind of phases of philosophy around how you want to move the ball, philosophy in the contest, and then team defence.
Yep.
And bringing it all together to make sure it all works together, basically. Yep. But like Croc's brought so much knowledge from his time in AFLW, and the good part is like a lot of the philosophies have kind of aligned from what we had previously, and where do we want to kind of get to. But yeah.
So did you discuss that when you were recruiting in the men's? Was the list management team involved as much as in AFLW in terms of like strategy?
It's super different. There's definitely like a big connection in the men's between the coaching department and the recruiting department in terms of this is what we need and this is how we play.
Yep.
And trying to bring players in that fit that, whereas probably my role and all our roles now, because there's so few of us, it's like in the men's you probably, as a recruiter, you would draft a player and almost hand them over.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the kind of fun part in AFLW is you get to draft a player and then work with them every day.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
And being like part of the game plan stuff and the week-to-week preparation, you get a really good handle for what you need, what you want from players.
Yep.
Which helps to like shape the list management stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's really, really different. It's the best part of it's bringing in a player, but then getting to work with them every week.
Yeah.
Not just hand them over.
Yeah. What is it like drafting someone then seeing them actually have like a career?
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's exciting. It's like it's both ways. There's some that you draft and they don't quite, which is really like disappointing. And sometimes you can take it personally, but it's like, it's so exciting to see like things that you say then come out and then express themselves on the field. So
for sure,
the best part is when you get exactly what you think you were going to get. So a player like yourself or Jas Ferguson is a good example this year.
Great example. Like
going to watch her last year, she's doing exactly what she was doing for Collingwood. Yeah. And she's fit in so well. And then there's like fun stories like Gilroy who, I shouldn't say this, but watched like 4 minutes of Hearts. It's like, yeah, she can come. And then to see her development and
she's great. She's amazing.
Like she hopped off the plane and came and had a kick and she'll be fine with me saying she really didn't really hit her foot that often.
Yes.
Like, oh boy, what have we got here? And then to see her be such a reliable player over a long period. Yeah. And she's brought all those exciting attributes.
She has, hasn't she?
But it's exciting. It's like, and Jas Garner is another example to like, sometimes you're unsure if what you're seeing is right. Yep. And so when like Scott and I would obviously watch a lot of Jas at Collingwood and be like she's already a gun, but it's something like quite special. Yep. And then to see the way she has transformed her game in the midfield, but probably more so like the person she is as well. 100%. Impact she has on the club. Yep. She's as good a person as like I've ever met. So yes, that's exciting is to see the way someone can like shape a club as well. Yeah, I look at someone like Jas Garner. I remember, I think in my draft interview with you guys, actually, I mentioned Jas because I'm going to speak about your draft interview days. No, Jas Garner. I remember watching her when I watched AFLW before I got drafted, and I thought she was like incredible. The mark she was taking, she was so accurate in front of goal. She kind of had it all. And then I remember my first year, I feel like because we were both in the forward line, she didn't quite go into the mid that year, but she still had like the season of her life. She was like our centre half forward and clunked marks, kicked goals. Like she just was incredible. But she's also just a really good leader. Like the way she took me under her wing in my first year. We both worked at the club. I spent like every day eating lunch with her, picking her brain about everything footy because she's such a smart footballer. And the way she goes about her business is ridiculous. But now she's like, one of the best players in the league, probably been robbed of a BNF, league BNF once or twice. Let's not talk about it. But she, she's incredible. I think she's a prime example of someone that I guess, it's pretty impressive that you've seen like potential to know that she's already a great player, but that she's got more in her, Ash Riddell even. We've had so many good pickups really, haven't we? Yeah, Jas is like so humble as well. She is, yeah. The way she like carries herself, you wouldn't know that she's the star that she is. Yeah, I think we have a lot of players like that as well. Ash Riddell's very humble as well. You would exact same thing. I think our whole midfield group are a bit like that. Our forward line, I can speak for all of us. We're probably all the big personalities of the team. That's every forward line ever. We kick goals. Big personality to play forward. Yes, 100%. Quiet ones play down back. Yeah, the best people play down back, really, let's be honest. Well, I guess you've mentioned it already, but my draft interview. Yeah. I think North Melbourne, my draft year, were the only club not to interview me outside of the combine. And I was deeply offended. Making me look bad. Yeah. So Rhys didn't interview me, probably because he thought I was going to go a bit high in the draft. North Melbourne had pick 25 in my draft copy, and I remember the conversations me and some of my friends used to have around combine being like, oh, who will slide down to North? That'll be interesting. Who's going to go there? I had people around me that thought they might be a chance to go there. And then draft day, I remember my combine interview with you guys and you said, if there's a chance you slide, you'd be a good chance. Like, let's see how you go and stuff. And then we both just laughed it off. And then I remember draft day. No, can we tell the actual story of you saying I complimented your game and you said, well, you shouldn't have traded your first round pick if you wanted to pick me. That's the actual story. I asked a pretty valid question. I said, you said you rated my game very highly and you liked the top end. I played obviously with Katie Lynch. She was one of my really good friends. I know you rated her very highly as well. Yeah. And you said that to me. You said we obviously rate you a lot and hopefully we have contact in the future. And I said, well, if you rated me so highly, why did you trade your first pick then? Correct. And then as soon as we picked you, I remember thinking in my head, I showed her.
Yeah, you did.
Didn't need it.
Well, it was karma, wasn't it, for asking the question?
Yeah, well, no, I remember it well because it was a good lesson for me too around making sure you plan for any player that you like.
For sure.
But yeah, I remember Collingwood had a bunch of picks, and in my head I'd just made the link. You played a bit of AFLW there that they would probably pick you, and then
so did I.
I remember it well, and I'm sure Laura and the rest of the crew will, because I was live, as we do in the group chat, live texting through the draft, and we went in with I think it was pick 25 or whatever, so or 18 in Victoria, something like that.
Yep.
And we'd obviously had a few players lined up after that with Tassie and that, so that was like the main event of the day. And it would make sense usually if you have the 18th pick to have 18 names. But in my wisdom that year, I was probably pretty confident that we didn't need 18 names.
Yeah.
And they were disappearing very quickly, Daisy.
Yeah, I could imagine.
The bead of sweat was running down the forehead, but there was a couple, and then there was one, and then it was just one name left.
Yes.
And we were getting to the very pointy end. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
And Daisy Bateman just kept sliding down, and away we went.
Yeah, it was a fun day.
We didn't need the first pick to get it. Sorry, Daisy.
No, it was a fun day for sure. It was funny because I just remember Matt Blytho saying to me oh, thank gosh we brought the polo. We didn't think we'd even be able to get any media today.
Yeah.
I remember it was crazy. It was a very overwhelming day, but in hindsight, I even you knew this, I was very disappointed with the result of the draft on the day. But in hindsight, it's the best thing that has happened. My whole family always say that to me, is how lucky am I that I fell into this position, because I think when you get drafted to a team like North Melbourne, it's one of the best lists in the comp. On paper, we have so much talent across the board, regardless of success or results over the years. Individually, we have a very good list. So I think when you get drafted to the list, I'm all I want to do is play footy. I'm not going to be able to, because your natural instinct is to go, you've got girls like Jas Garner or, ABBA, people that train well and deserve a spot in the team. The self-belief goes down a bit. You kind of go, oh gosh, I'm not going to get out of the game. And then now I've been lucky enough to play all of them. So
yeah, you've developed. I remember stressed you were in the first year about selection each week.
Yes, well, I wouldn't. It's funny though. It's so funny now, because some of the younger girls in the team, during the week when they're really stressed about selection, I'm it's so funny because you look at it and you go, oh, it's a bit ridiculous, they're stressing. But then I'm well, that was me. I used to get so stressed about it. But that's something that I think we've been, even the team this year, Croc has been really transparent about, is that it's really normal to stress about that stuff. And the good thing is, I think, you can have really honest conversations with Croc about it. In your review on a Monday, you can ask him those questions. You can, say to him, what do you think I need to do to secure my spot? And I think that's the best thing about our program, is how transparent it is.
Yeah. And he's always got good vision, and
he does.
I'm not going to lie, I was sitting next to him on the plane.
Yep.
So anyone who knows Croc, I've never seen anyone code a game like Croc or watch a game in review like Croc.
Right.
I was sitting next to him on the plane on the way home on Sunday night. It was 9:30, so I'm not particularly interested at 9:30 at night.
Yes.
Coding the game.
That surprises me, actually.
As soon as the flight took off, he started coding, and he's pointing things out, and I'm half trying to go to sleep so I don't have to talk about it. But he's pointing things out and he's getting through the game. Anyway, how long's the flight? 50 minutes?
Yeah, 50 minutes.
50 minutes later, he shuts his laptop and he's coded 3 minutes of the game. So that's how.
Right. He goes through it thoroughly.
That's the detail he goes through. He had 450 codes or something of the first 3 minutes. So
yeah, the funny thing is, you could watch back the game. I'll watch back the game and be like, oh, my hands were good, or I did something good in that situation. And you go into a review with Croc and none of the things you did well, in terms of what your version of well is, none of them are in there. He values the actual strategy of the game rather than what you do with the ball in hand. He really values what you do off the ball. Yeah. And if you do that in a way that you can improve more on, he'll show you straight away, but he'll also show you if you do it really well. Yeah. I think that's, for me, it's everyone makes such a big emphasis on what you do with ball in hand and how many times you touch your ball, but he cares a lot more about what you do when the ball's not in your hand. It doesn't matter how many touches you have.
Yeah. No, 100%. I've never, even I learn that much from him each week because his knowledge from working in the men's, for many spaces, but coaching for so long is there's never a scenario which he doesn't know how it could improve or what he wants out of it, which from my role in terms of the performance stuff is so valuable because
100%.
he knows exactly what he wants all the time.
Yeah.
Which is really, really good and makes it really kind of easy for everyone else to understand.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to go into quick fire questions.
Okay.
Okay. You've kind of answered some of these already, which is great. This one's a good one. Since year one, we've retained 15 of our inaugural players. So we've kept...
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
How do you not know that? You're the list manager.
That's a good stat.
What do you put it down to? Why do people stay here?
That's a good question. I think we've developed a good little, and you would know more than me, but a good little culture. I think everyone seems to enjoy everyone's company. Yes. I think we've been, I don't know if successful is the right word. We've won more games than we've lost, which helps. I know, and everyone's super ambitious. I think because we haven't quite achieved what we want to achieve yet. Everyone's keen to do that.
Yep.
I don't know. You tell me. Why have you stayed?
I don't know. I've stayed because I like it here. Like, to be frank, like it's, and I think a lot of girls' answers would be as simple as that. Like, it's a really good place to be. And I mean, I haven't known any different. A lot of the girls in the team have spent time at different clubs and probably can compare. But for me, I came in here and I think it helps that I've been given opportunities, but you're playing with people like Carney who, like, I don't think I'll ever be able, like, once Carney retires or I retire before her, who knows? Not ever going to happen, but...
You never know. She's going pretty well,
She is. But people like Carney, like, I don't think I'll ever be able to have the opportunity to play with people like that again. And they're people that want to, like, that make you really want to stay at the club, as well as the staff, obviously. Croc's an amazing coach. There's people around that you can ask anything of and, you know, it's not abnormal. Yeah. I think that's the best part, and it's very inclusive. We're all very weird in our own right. Like, I think we have one of the most unique lists ever.
Yeah. Well, that's probably possibly a reflection. I like unique.
Yes.
Ask anyone, I like unique.
Good point.
Unique characters and people who are, like, comfortable to be themselves around
the
group and a little bit different. But I think the investment from the club is probably another reason. Like, from the very start, we've probably been the best resource, or one of the best resource clubs staff-wise. Like the passion from people above. So Sonia loves AFLW. She loves the club. She loves AFLW.
Yeah.
She sends a great message to the group every week.
She does.
She was at training last night.
Yeah.
BA absolutely loves it. He's very passionate.
Yes.
And like, supports us in any way that he can.
Yeah.
So the investment from people above, and then obviously Laura.
Yes.
And is obviously well regarded what she's done for the club and for the program. But yeah, Matt Belitho, Nathan Rovat, like, we've had a good little crew. There's been
a lot of change though. Like,
it has.
It's crazy to reflect on, like, my first year here, even the staff and coaches, but even like Kano and Ash and Matt Belitho.
Kano and Matt run the AFL now. Like, Swaggy's coaching Sydney,
and they can probably thank us.
Joycey's coaching Gold Coast.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Just the battlers like me who are hanging on you and me days.
You're just waiting for your coaching. No. Your coaching get up. No. Okay. When you're drafting a player in interviews, what do you look for?
Good question. Oh, there's, like, I'm probably going to give you the boring answer. Like, there's, like, intangible stuff like work rate and professionalism. And,
yes.
Drive, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Personally, I really like players who are, like, confident in themselves and.
Yeah. Yeah, you love that.
Yeah, I like confidence.
Yeah.
But also like, confident in who they are in terms of their ability to kind of express themselves. I think the best thing about AFLW is the different personalities and
100%
demographics, and I like those who embrace their own, like, quirkiness.
Yeah, love that.
So just confidence and not like the old stock standard answers. Hard to get excited about. So I like a bit of point of difference.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Who is your favourite player in the league outside of North Melbourne?
Wow. That's a good question. I should qualify that this doesn't mean we're going to try and get them.
No.
Put me on the spot.
I'm sure you
I
have
can probably
some in
give you a
mind.
couple. I've got lots.
Yes.
I like Kate Hoare a lot.
So do I, actually.
I'm going to change it. Who are the players that give me the most nightmares when we're doing Oppo?
It's a good one.
Because they're often the ones that I think are the best or really important.
Yep.
Kate Hoare looks like Tony Morger every time we play Melbourne.
She's incredible.
She has played very well against us. Bree Davey is an absolute nightmare to plan for.
Yep.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Come back. Give me a couple of minutes to think about it.
Okay. I reckon you said you definitely.
Who do you think I like? Who do I pump up? Or
You pump up a lot of players.
yeah.
Like you rate a lot of people. I think you like Bree Moody's ruck work.
Yeah.
We've spoken about her. Danielle Ponta. You like?
Yeah, I do like Danielle Ponta.
Yeah, I reckon especially in Oppo meeting, like you give credit where credit's due, I think. And I think Kate Hoare is definitely one that I think you'd be really silly not to rate because I think she's incredible, to be honest.
If you're listening, Kate, you're welcome to join.
No, don't take my spot. Okay, and in the men's, I guess you've been a part of a lot of draft processes. Do you look at anyone that's in the program now and think like, wow, as part of draft, like you being drafted, like I guess someone that you've watched in juniors that have now evolved into having a career?
That's another good question. You've done well. Your preparation's really good. I love watching Curtis Taylor play.
Yeah.
I really liked him when he was coming through and was really excited when Mark picked him.
Yep.
I think he'll be a good player, and he's a great person. He loves AFLW, so that's a big tick.
Yep, big tick.
That's a really good question. There's been obviously a lot of change at the Roos, but like Luke as well, the growth in Luke Davies' game has been good. He's a good Haileybury boy, so we're adding to that little crew with Bella Reddy.
True that. Bella Reddy, Haileybury.
Yeah, probably those two in particular.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Great answers. I'm going to go back to favourite AFLW player in the league now.
Okay.
You have to pick one.
Okay. I'm just cycling through the teams in my head.
I'd pick Chelsea Randall.
Yeah, Chelsea's pretty good. I'm trying to think of someone unique, not stock standard that I...
you like Georgia Jenny?
Oh, you know who I like?
Yeah,
Greta Bodie. I just like the way Greta goes about and her
she's a hustler.
personality and very skillful, very underrated.
I agree. She's a very good small forward.
Yeah. I like the players who are underrated.
Yeah.
But just get it done every week.
Who do you think the most underrated in our team is?
The most underrated in our team? That is a good question. Who do you think's the most underrated first while I think about it?
I think she's starting to get more recognition, but I think Gilly.
Yeah.
Because I think Gilly does a lot more than what people probably notice. And I think she is always there to help, like, anywhere around the ground. Like, she always works over to support everyone. I don't know. I just rate the way that she goes about it. And I think for someone that's only just come into AFLW, in our meeting she contributes. And she's actually got a really, really good footy brain. And she's not afraid to say what she suggests a lot of things. I think that's amazing for someone that's just really come into the game.
Yeah. She probably rivals Carnes, I reckon, as the most competitive, but most outwardly competitive and ruthless.
Agreed.
Mindset to win.
Yep.
I'll change the question again. I think the players who are really like emerging this year and are probably still underrated, like Mia King, I reckon, is
100%.
A very important player very quickly. Not that she wasn't before, but her step up has been significant. I think Jas Ferguson is playing a very important role at the moment.
She's just so good.
And she's a great human. Actually, should give a shout out to Chloe McMillan.
Okay.
It was actually here, Dave, looking at. I remember I was at that spot right there in the warm up against the VFL game, and you would know Chloe McMillan well, but she's involved in the Collingwood AFLW, and she's their VFLW coach, and she will be a senior coach of AFLW very soon. She's a star.
Yep.
She's a ripping person.
Yep.
And I was halfway through the season, she goes, oh, they hadn't lost a game, so they're going pretty well.
Right.
She goes, you should have a look at Jas Ferguson. I was like, yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, Chloe's a star. She's right. I'm gonna have a look. So it was a couple of weeks later. I clicked on Vision. I was like, oh yeah, not bad. Went to watch, and I probably gave away our secrets too much because I followed her from end to end for about 6 weeks.
Right.
And by the 6th week, I'm like,
yeah, she's
the juice. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, she's a freak.
And then
she's certainly emerging as well. Yes, they're both very good.
Yeah, went and had a coffee with her, and from that point, it was
endgame.
Pretty keen to get Jas
Yep.
to the club, and I just think the way she's like applied herself.
Yep.
Knows what she's good at.
Yep. I'll add one onto your list.
Yeah.
I reckon Bella Eddy as well.
Bella has improved a lot.
Yeah, I think if you look at her games last year, I played a bit down forward with Bella. I think she started on the wing, and I think that she probably needed to stick to one position to get more familiar with the game, so she came down forward. And I know that she probably wasn't happy with the way she impacted last year. She was very vocal about that. But I think this year, she's impacted so much, and she's grown, her game to another level. The way she drives her legs through contests, I think last year she probably wouldn't have done, but I think she backs herself in, because I remember looking at her highlight reels or her vision when we were drafting her, and that was what she did best at NAB League, and it's pretty cool that she's bringing that into her game now at the best level you can play at.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think she's stepped up a lot, and she does. Her goal on the weekend against Freo was.
Jeez, we needed that one.
Yes, we needed that more
stressful.
than anything. Yeah, it was the most stressful period of my life. But I also contributed to the inaccuracy. But Bella, just to have the poise to be able to finish that as a 19-year-old coming up. There'd be some senior players in the league that probably wouldn't have finished that. And it looks easy from watching because it looks uncontested, but it's actually really hard to find the composure to square up and kick in a really important goal when against one of the best sides.
Yeah, I think at the end of last year we felt like our improvement would be internal.
Yes.
We weren't going to go and bring in a whole heap of players, but I think it's players like Bella and Mia and yourself and Alice and Brooke Brown and players who've been here for a while who are developing that are really helping our improvement this year.
For sure.
And just on the underrated one, we couldn't go through that without talking about Jenna Bruton.
Jenna Bruton, I'm getting tired of saying that she's underrated.
And I think Kim Rennie too is doing a great job.
She's amazing. Her work rate is second to none, especially as a ruckman. She's
working hard.
Well, that's us done for today, Rhys.
I got that out of that easy. I thought I was going to get some more curly questions than that.
You got to keep it modest sometimes. But thank you very much for joining me, and we'll have to get you on after we win the premiership.
We will. That's when you'll be giving me a tattoo.
Yeah,
premiership tattoo.
I'll give you a tattoo on podcast.
Done. Sounds good.
Thanks for joining me, Rhys.
No worries. Thanks, Daz.